So we're trying to figure out why good things happen to bad people, and we're in Kuntres Umaayan M7 Class. You got it, Chaim? And we're explaining that you can't have a heart attack. Remember, Menachem? Mm-hmm. Why can't you have a heart attack? Because you're bringing down Hashem's energy, life force into your life. That's like the bloodstream. So you have to make sure to do all the mitzvahs to bring it into your life. But the vein that contains the blood, that's like the commands of what not to do. Because the vein has to keep the blood in the right place. If you pop your veins, two problems. Firstly, you're going to not get the blood you need. And then it's going to be very unhealthy. And secondly, the blood can go all over the place. So too with Averis. That when someone is not careful to guard himself from doing the wrong thing, what's going to happen? Firstly, Hashem's energy is not going to come to him. He's going to be lacking Hashem in his life. And secondly, all of a sudden, he gives energy, donates. That's right. Donates to the wrong people. You know, there's a lot of charities in the world that are collecting lots of money for very good things, and the money ends up going to the wrong places. Wouldn't want that. Wouldn't want things going to the wrong place. I was once helping with the Pesach Seder in the city of, it was in Coffs Harbour in Australia. It's a small, very small city. It's a very cute place. So I sat by the Seder next to this man and his wife. They were dolphin trainers by profession. So working in a aquarium, and they previously worked in the wild. So they told me something very interesting. They worked for a few years in Indonesia, where they have lots of dolphins that are endangered, and they did a lot of work to try save the dolphins that were in danger. So they said they worked for the WWF. The World Wildlife Federation, very famous charity for helping animals. And they said for their work with dolphins, they raised over 2 million euro in Europe. The World Wildlife Federation raised over 2 million euro.
The worldwide only raised only 2 million.
Just for their work. Just for them. Just for these two people to save dolphins.
Oh.
And you know how much money got to them? $16,000.
With all the rest
Tax as well.
No, they're tax exempt. It's a charity. They're not giving a cent to tax. After this one takes his cut, and that one takes his cut, and a bit of embezzlement, and a bit of corruption, and everyone needs to take their slice. And before you know it, out of the $2 million, $16,000 went to help the dolphins. So
you know what that means? You have to donate $10 million, like that $500,000 to go to the dolphins.
Yeah, that's true. That's called dumb economics. That's what Aaron Kotler did during the war. That it was very difficult to get money to the Yidden in Shanghai. So his opinion was, if we raise a humongous amounts of money in America, and we send it with all the scammers, then hopefully a few dollars will get there. And that's what he did. And it definitely worked it definitely worked a little bit. I'll tell you that much. Maybe during the war it was a bit different, but I'm not sure if in modern day Europe you need to be doing that. Either way, so does this happen in our lives, Chaim? Do we ever fundraise 2 million euro? Do we ever get so much chayus? Are we ever excited, passionate, interested? And then all of a sudden, we donate all that energy into the wrong places. What happens then? So let's find out. Has that ever happened with you?
No.
You have so much passion, you want to do something good, and then you end up spending all that passion and doing something not good. You're so pumped up and excited, and you walk in the zal and someone's like, yeah, you're annoying. And you tell them, oh yeah, I'll beat you up. And then you get into a fight and you put all your passion that should go to a good place into a bad place. Or the opposite. Are you ever really angry and you decide, okay, I'm going to use this anger for something good. I'm going to exercise to get my anger out. I'm going to go, I know someone, my friend needs something, he's sick and needs some medicine from the store. I'm going to hike to the store. He can't make it there. Use my energy for that. Use that energy for different things. Let's find out. So you see the line on... the same lines. Yeah, on page 79. It's in Maamer Zayin Per Gimel, in the middle. And we were just talking about how Hashem wants a derech b'tachtonim within every year's life. You see the word Ach in the middle of Per Gimel. It's probably the start of the paragraph. Ach, however, gosh, and nimshach b'chinas. So, we're talking about how Hashem is giving his inner will is to live in the world through the Yidden doing Torah mitzvahs. But when Hashem comes down and brings the inner will Yisrael to the Yidden Torah mitzvahs canal through Torah mitzvahs, you know what also happens? There's the backwards, the outer element, the chitzonius, the superficial element. Haratzon elyon of Hashem's will, shenikra b'chenes oirif, which is called the back of the neck, as opposed to the front of the face. When I really like someone, I'm going to turn to them and give them a big smile. When I don't like someone, I'm going to turn away from them. They can see my back. The loy panim le'akum, and he doesn't give his face to the akum, which are all the evil peoples. So Hashem doesn't want terrorists to survive. When Yidden are doing Torah mitzvahs, Hashem is giving to Yidden, and while he's giving to the world, there's the spare change goes to the bad guys. That they come from the 70 ministering angels, one angel for each of the 70 nations. They receive in an outer and backwards way. That's why they're called other gods. You notice how it's called Acherim? Because Acherim, Commissioner Spoil Elek, we explained before, that it comes from the same word as Achirayim, which means backwards. They're receiving in a backwards way. Hashem's so-called turning his back to them. That's why they're called other gods. So you see, idolatrous nations, historically, have served the sun and the moon and the stars in different constellations. They see different groups of stars, and they serve them. And it's very interesting that it comes from something that there's really spiritual energy given to the world through all these different heavenly hosts. That's represented. It doesn't mean literally the sun and the moon and the stars. That these heavenly beings that are represented by those. The question is, are you serving those, or are you realizing those are just a channel from Hashem, and we should all be serving Hashem? So, an idea, it'll be such a chutzpah. Imagine if I give you a nice big present for your birthday. Let's say, Chaim, you're turning 19 this year?
I turned it 19.
Turn 19. Imagine if I bought you a car for your 19th birthday.
19, exactly what you do.
Perfect. Beautiful. Mazel tov. So imagine if I got you a car for your 19th birthday.
Thank you.
And I got some random guy I hired for $5. I'm like, hey, can you drive this car over to Chaim's house? And then you're like, the guy's like, hey, here's a car. And then you spend the rest of your life, every year on your birthday, writing a thank you card to this delivery man. Thank you so much for giving me the car. It'd be such a chutzpah. Come on. I spent $20,000 on you, and this guy spent 5 minutes driving a car. So the same thing, people serving these angels, it's like everything's coming from Hashem. Hashem just decided to let these angels be his messenger. So, they say don't shoot the messenger, so don't worship the messenger either. So, being Kabbalah on the way.
It's like just like a
yeah.
When let's say a messenger, let's say a king sends a messenger to the other king, and he says, "Oh, the king declares war," and then the king just kills this messenger. It's like, well, why would you kill it? It's like a lot of times, like in the Tanakh, you show that he kills the messenger, like from the king. But why would you kill a messenger? He just can't tell you that. Like he's not here to fight you. He just tell you.
Fascinating. Yeah, very true. So, in Kabbalah, the way that all these Ayin Sarim receive Chayus, Hu Rak B'derech Agav Bilvad. Just Derech Agav. You guys ever been to Israel? They say, Agav. It's just a side thing. It's just by the way. It's not the main point. Dahainu al Derech Mashal Hanal. Like we said before in the Mashal, the Mishnah Sarim, where you have a king making a royal banquet for all his best friends and high ministers and acquaintances. And while he's there, he also throws a few bones under the table for the dog. Now, he didn't make the party for the dog, but it's just by the way, it's just a side thing. After you already draw down this giving of life force, someone who deserves to have Hashem's inner will by him. Then even people who don't deserve it, they also receive from the leftovers. Derech Agav, on the side, just as a side thing. Even though Hashem never wanted to give to these people, the king who has a big banquet, he never made his banquet and he was sitting there planning it. It's like, you know what I'd really like to do? I'd really like to give my dog a bone. You could just skip the banquet for that. But it's just something that's an outcome. It's a side thing. So too also, the outer forces, the bad forces, they receive Yanika. Yanika means suckling. It's a bit like a leech. These evil forces, they have Hashem just giving life force to people, and these ones are kind of trying to latch on to suck off a tiny bit of life force. And the chayos and energy are really key from the godly energy, light. From the leftovers, and the outer part of what Hashem wants. So what does Hashem want? To give to the people who are doing good. Then there's just the leftovers end up going to the bad places to keep them alive. After the inner energy has already gone to the side of Kedusha. By drawing the Oiris into the Kalim through mitzvahs. So what does it mean, the Oiris into our Kalim? Hashem wants to come into the world. So Hashem gives us opportunity to have a mitzvah, which is a kli, is a vessel, is a landing pad, is a parking spot for Hashem's energy. Hashem has different types of ways of relating to the world. For example, and then we can bring that into our lives through different types of kli. For example, Hashem's chesed. You want to bring Hashem's kindness more into the world. So Hashem gave us a mitzvah tzedakah. And that's a place that when we give tzedakah, that's a vessel, that's a receptacle, that's a port, that's a place, landing pad for Hashem's chesed, kindness. So if you want more of Hashem's kindness in the world, or in your life, more so, all you have to do is give some tzedakah, and then Hashem's kindness will shine more in your life. And we gave a lot of other examples of this was it yesterday or 2 days ago? When did we speak about tefillin and mitzvahs? So,
Yesterday.
Yeah, there we go. That's what it means. Hashem will shine His face towards you. It means His face means His will. You know when we say Berachos Kohanim, we say that Hashem shines His face towards you. What do you mean shines His face? It sounds a bit funny. It means His face means His will. When you look at someone, is when you're interested in them. When you don't like someone, you turn away. So Hashem shows His inner will, His inner intent, giving to those who are doing good. Canal, like we spoke about before. But Nimsa, we find that giving to all the bad stuff is in a backwards way. It's literally like someone who throws something back over his shoulder. He's like, oh, that guy, I need to give to him also? Okay, I'll throw it backwards. I didn't even want to look at him. I didn't even want to look at that guy. But Derek Agav is a side way of a toffel, and it's really not important. Because he's busy giving to those he really wants to give to. So let's say you want to give your best friend a present. And your mother's like, hey, you should really give to that kid that you don't like. You're like, I really don't like him. You're like, you should give him something also. So you go to your best friend, you give him a present with a big smile. And the other guy, you're like, okay, just give him on the side, get it over with. That's how people feel about that. So when Hashem's giving energy, life force, all blessings in the world, He gives with a full face, full graciousness to those who are doing good. And the people who are doing bad, they get on the side also, as a side thing. So, the bad guys don't get anything, the Chitzonius doesn't get anything from the inner will of Hashem. So there's a big difference. It's not just like first and second. It's how it's delivered and what it is. That Yidden doing Torah mitzvahs get a real relationship with Hashem. They have the inner intent from Hashem, the inner chayos, the inner life force. The chitzonim, the bad stuff, that just gets outer, superficial. You know, it's a bit the difference between going over to someone. Imagine you have a teacher, and the teacher wants to teach something. So he goes over to his favorite student, and he spends 10 minutes explaining the lesson with all his passion and energy and interest, and he invests himself into this lesson, and he teaches it as best as he can. The kid's going to walk away, he's going to be like, wow, that was a great lesson. Then he goes over to a kid he doesn't like. Hopefully all teachers like all their students. Personally, I love all my students. But, you know, that's sweet. But then he goes over to someone who he doesn't like. And he's like, he spends the same amount of time, but he's like, okay, today we're going to be learning about something. I'm not really interested in being here. He starts falling asleep. He's just like saying what he needs to say just to get it over with. It's not going to be the same. The kid's going to walk away. He's not going to have it understood as well. He's not going to have as good a relationship with his teacher. It's going to be a failure of a lesson. So we see when Hashem's giving with all His will and intent to those who do good, they really receive, as opposed to those, the bad forces, they get in the backward side way. They don't get any inner spell. They only receive from the leftovers, the dregs. You know when you make wine, you guys ever made wine as an experiment at home? I didn't do this. Some people for Pesach make their own wine every year.
My father made when he was a kid.
There we go. You could ask your father if he made. So, you make wine, you have to crush a whole lot of grapes, and you put all the crushed stuff in a barrel, and the good wine floats to the top, and the leftovers, the little bits and pieces of like the sediments, very good. The pits and the
garbage.
yeah, the peels of the grapes that all sinks to the bottom. And that's like the garbage. So like in the olden days, if you were really poor, you couldn't buy wine. You'd buy some like leftover wine dregs.
There's a lot of Gemara.
Yeah, you buy some wine dregs and you add some water to it and you have like some kind of poor man's wine. So that's what the Sitra Achara gets. That's what the Sitra Achara gets. Okay, weiter. Specifically, after you bring up the whole hashpah, the whole giving to the side of kedusha, then also the bad guys, the klippa, receive from the leftovers. What happens now the other way around? Everything we're talking about today was everyone's doing good stuff and Hashem's giving to them, and the bad guys, the bad energies, are getting some leftovers. What happens if you aren't doing Torah mitzvahs? What happens if Hashem is not revealed and is giving to the good side? What happens if there's no one who deserves Hashem to open revelation? And we're not talking about, you have to flip it around. We're not talking about when people are being bad and don't deserve. Quite the opposite. There are some times, let me give you an example. Let's go back to our teacher. We were talking about before, the teacher gives the student he likes all his attention. The student he doesn't like, he's not really paying attention to him so well. What happens when the student becomes a teacher himself? What happens when the student studies so hard, he rises to the level of the student? This is called aliyas ha'ilmis. The world's rising up. This happens on Shabbos and special occasions. It speaks about Tanya, and Shabbos, and Rosh Chodesh, and Yontif. The world's rise up. So now, the teacher doesn't need to give. He can just be friends with his former student who's now a teacher. Meaning, on Shabbos, all the good in the world rises up to Hashem. And now Hashem doesn't need to come down into the world. People came up to him. So now there's something very interesting. As opposed to, let's say you're giving charity and some of it goes to the cause and some of it gets embezzled by someone who's not so honest. What happens when the poor people now start making money and lift themselves up and now they're your friends? You don't have to give anything to them, and nothing bad goes to the bad people either. Then there's nothing for the leechers to leech off. If you're not teaching, you don't even have a class because your student became a teacher also. If you're not giving charity because all the poor people are now well off, then there's no place for the money to get stolen. So only when Hashem's giving to the side of Kedusha, then there's some leftovers go to the Sitra Achara. So when does this happen? This happens on Shabbos, which is why, by the way, many Chassidim held that there's no iskafi on Shabbos. There were some Chassidim with a whole week that would never indulge in any delicious food. They would be like, no, I eat what I need to eat. I'll eat some black bread and salt. What?
You don't eat something that you don't want to eat. It's still tiring to eat when you're hungry. No matter what it is.
This is a discussion for another time. I remember I was on Shabbos by a Farbrengen of Rapinya Korf. He was a super chassid. And by the Farbrengen, he was eating a chocolate Danish. And I thought, that's a bit strange. He's like not the type of guy to be into chocolate Danishes. So afterwards, it could be because it was on Shabbos. And on Shabbos, as opposed to, you have to be very careful the whole week that you don't do anything bad to give energy to the bad places. On Shabbos, you go up close to Hashem, and the bad doesn't exist there at all. Or it could be he just eats whatever they give him, and he's such a true person that he doesn't matter. If you give him black bread, you give him a chocolate Danish, he'll just eat whatever you give him. But either way, so on Shabbos, the worlds go up. Everything that's good in the world goes close to Hashem and returns to Hashem. And now Hashem doesn't need to give anything down to this world, so there's no place for the evil forces to exist. Which is actually what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. You know, it says that in Tanya, that right now there's Hashem giving to good things, and he gives the klipas noiga, which are all things that could be good. And from that, Shalosh klipas tameis, the bad things get their energy. When Mashiach comes, all the things that could be good will become actually good, and therefore all the evil, where is it going to get its life force from? All the leeches aren't going to have anyone to leech off. And it's just going to all die and disappear. That's why there's going to be no evil when Mashiach comes. All the evil is going to disappear. It's going to be cut off. So, Kitzer, in short, Mitzvos loisase. The loisase, the negative commandments. What not to do? Shoimrim. They're gods. You know why? That the godly are shouldn't go to the wrong places, the hated places, the disgusting places. You have to be very careful not to do any averis, because then you're going to give some of your godly energy to the impure forces. Pnimiyas haratzon. The inner ratzon of Hashem is in Torah, mitzvahs aseh, mitzvahs loisaseh, that you should do mitzvahs and not do averis, rakli Yisrael, which is for the Yidden. V'derech agav, on the side, nimshacha arz ha'chatonis ratzon elyon, la'ayin sarim. On the side, once Hashem's given to all the good guys, also the ayin sarim get them on the side, through them, through the ayin sarim, which take care of all the nations, both the good people and the bad people, the space for the bad people as well to receive. So the main thing we learned today is, when Hashem's giving, it could go to the bad. But when we're all up to Hashem, we go to, if we lift ourselves up to Hashem, if we lift the whole world up to Hashem in the times of Mashiach, there's no space for bad. The bad will just disappear on its own.